The year is 2015. People are just experiencing Bloodborne for the first time, kicking off a lifetime obsession with a game that may never get a true sequel. Meanwhile, other people are enjoying The Witcher 3, or Metal Gear Solid 5, or Fallout 4, or a handful of other blockbusters that still sell well even to this day. But it wasn't just AAA games dominating the headlines. The indie sphere also saw hits like Undertale, Soma, and Kerbal Space Program, to name a few. But the games themselves weren't the only things dominating online discussion around that time. Everybody was having heated arguments about the ethics of video games made in Unreal Engine. Almost had you for a second there, huh? Don't worry, the only gamer gates we're going to be talking about are the gates to Princess Peach's castle in Unreal Engine. Hold on a second. I don't remember this level looking so smooth or lumpy? Uncanny maybe? Let's just click on the next video. Maybe something was wrong with that one. Oh, come on, this is just an Unreal Engine demo scene with Kirby thrown in. While it might look like a joke now, would you believe me if I told you these videos were actually extremely popular back then? Yep, with the public release of Unreal Engine 4 in 2014, amateur devs were quick to pick it up and start experimenting. Over the next couple months, YouTube and gaming forums were being flooded with Unreal Engine tech demos with popular characters thrown in, and the audiences were absolutely eating it up. Now, I originally thought we'd do a fun, quick little video about how terrible some of these remakes are and call it a day, but there's a whole lot more to the story. Like, how did we go from Mario jumping around tech demo scenes to Shrek in Skyrim-esque medieval worlds? Did this genre of videos really end when the trend faded 10 years ago, or are new creators still pulling millions of views to this very day? Are there now actual video games made by these YouTubers that thousands of people are paying cold hard cash for? And who's really behind this shadowy cabal bringing in hefty sums of money despite having almost no digital footprint? I set out to answer those questions and found a whole lot more than I bargained for. So if that sounds interesting to you, get comfortable as we dig into the strange world of Unreal Engine remakes. But before I start this video, no, don't worry, this isn't an ad read, but it is a call out to not harass any of these creators. There's absolutely no need to dig up these old videos and leave comments poking fun at them. We can all just have a laugh at some goofy videos, maybe learn something from it, and leave it at that. So with that out of the way, why don't we start things off with a few of the classics. First off, we have one of the most popular videos in the Unreal remake genre. A little 5-minute tech demo called Mario is Unreal by A-Roxini. Sitting at almost 5 million views over the past 10 years, it's often referred to as the original video that spawned this entire niche. And while I don't believe this one video is the true starting point, it definitely had a huge impact in the gaming sphere. At a glance, it's pretty obvious how terribly clashing the cartoony Mario is with the hyper-realistic Unreal Engine demo scenes. What if Mario was in a realistic sci-fi building? I don't know, man. What if he was? Would it really be that crazy? It didn't blow my mind 10 years ago, and it's just aged even worse over time. Predicting this criticism, the video states, too realistic, and gives us a more stylized scene with a toon shader thrown on top. And despite this trying to look more like a classic Nintendo title, it all just feels pretty soulless. This scene is supposed to remind you of Princess Peach's castle, but the assets look like they're ripped from some bootleg mobile game. The video cycles through a handful of popular demo scenes, my personal favorite being the grungy subway horror scene, making it look like Mario crossed over to the Saw universe. No, Mario, don't jump into the Jigsaw flashback. He wears a backwards cap. He knows how to appeal to the youth. Anyways, the scenes keep changing, but Mario runs around all of them exactly the same. They somehow managed to make a 5-minute video feel like it's 20 minutes. And it ends off with a side-by-side comparison of the Unreal Engine demo versus the original Mario 64, and boy is it depressing. Not just that the revamped version lacks all the soul of the original, but that there were countless people thinking that this is the future of gaming. Let's just suck out every ounce of originality from our favorite games and replace it with a hyper-realistic sheen, because realism equals good game, am I right? And no, I'm not just cherry-picking opinions from a couple people here and there. A lot of people actually legitimately wanted this to happen. Don't believe me? Let's take a look at the comment section. I didn't even have to pick out singular comments to prove this point. This is just one screenshot of the comment section with every single consecutive comment wishing that Nintendo games actually looked like this. Of course, you can find a couple dissenting opinions too, but they're definitely in the minority. But hey, maybe that video was just lightning in a bottle. Why don't we check out a different one from a different creator? Sitting at a respectable 500,000 views, we have Super Mario RTX in Unreal Engine 5 by FunkyZite Games. Despite the 8-year gap between these two videos, they're still mostly the same concept. Take Mario, throw him in the latest version of Unreal Engine, show off some of the new tech, and rake in the views. If anything, these videos feel more like covert ads for Unreal Engine than they do for any push to put Mario in a realistic setting. Big conspiracy brain time, but what if Epic Games was actually behind these videos in some shape or form? They clearly drove a bunch of amateur devs to pick up the engine, and they bring in a lot of goodwill from the uninformed public. Listen, I know that it's far more likely that these are just some lone devs playing around with the engine and showing it off for the fun of it. But what if it wasn't that simple? What if these were actually just ploys to pull in huge ad revenue or direct you to buy some other products? Again, probably not the case here, but there is one instance where that might be closer to the truth than you'd think. I don't want to get sidetracked just yet, but I promise I'll be diving deep on that later in the video. Back to the remake, it's interesting to see how the tech has advanced over the years, most notably on the lighting front. The use of real-time lights with dynamic shadows has always been a huge performance hog in games, and it is nice to see some progress has been made in that area. But the creator of this Mario video didn't just make the setting gritty and realistic, they also decided to make Mario super edgy himself. Would Nintendo ever let our lovable companion splatter a Goomba or ignite a Koopa in a wooden cage? No. But edgy Mario could. Despite this being a Mario remake, it feels a lot more like Shadow the Hedgehog than anything else. Swap out the models and throw in some terrible edgelord voice lines and you've got some prime middle schooler content. But jumping down to the comment section, we can see that even the creator himself acknowledges the absurdity of the video and the culture surrounding it. As he says, "Don't be the person that takes the video with Goomba blood explosions too seriously." Well said. But in the words of another commenter, love the screams of his enemies burning to ashes. It really captures the Mario spirit. Also well said. Since we're talking about comments, I haven't yet covered the one you'll see more than anything else on these videos. Nintendo hire this man. 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 As I've tried to explain, back in 2015, a large portion of the public thought these were good ideas that Nintendo should be making. People were saying Nintendo hire this man unironically back then. But over time, the phrase has sort of shifted and people use it as an ironic statement to poke fun at these commenters. And the original wonder and amazement at Unreal Engine's release has shifted to a more skeptical view over the intervening years. But it's kind of hard to pinpoint where this meme exactly started. Know Your Meme says it started in 2018 based on this 4chan post, but looking online we can see comments of this back in 2015. There's also a 2019 song of the same name by YouTuber Chris Voiceman. I don't know if I can play it here, but just imagine the song Secret Agent Man with Nintendo hire this man instead. And I can't forget to mention that the meme did pretty much come true with the Sonic franchise. I guess the whole reason Nintendo didn't hire this man is because Sega already got to him first. Does Sonic look completely out of place in a realistic open world setting? Absolutely. But I think the series has always been kind of a mess, so I'll leave that one to the diehard Sonic fans. In my mind, all this stuff is very closely linked to the HD texture pack memes, you know, the one where they show a low-res version and then a really poorly upscaled one next to it. This was partially joking about bad game remasters and partially joking about amateur modders who don't really think much beyond higher resolution equals better. Exactly like the Unreal Engine remake videos we've been talking about so far. There's a real disconnect between what the public thinks is good and what actually makes a game good. Which brings me to a classic debate: art style versus graphical fidelity. If we look at most new AAA games, we can plainly see that they have both a consistent style and usually high fidelity. You may not like their style, it may look ugly to you, but huge companies are generally able to create a single cohesive look. And we can't deny that most cutting-edge graphics we see in real playable games, not just tech demos, are in the AAA space. That's not to say there aren't some indies with impressive graphical tech or amazing art styles. Quite the opposite. But cases of inconsistent style or outdated tech are much more common in indie games than elsewhere. This is usually due to plain inexperience, be it a programmer who doesn't understand their engine, an artist who's never heard of poly counts, or countless other factors. And then there's the people who think they can match the graphics of games with hundreds of people working on them all by themselves. Most AAA games aim for a semi-realistic style with high-end graphics. Not perfect realism, mind you, but a step or two removed from that. So when indies first got their hands on Unreal Engine and were able to recreate some of what they saw in AAA games, it was seen as a huge accomplishment, even if it was very easy to do. And in some ways, it was. Unreal's public release pushed the envelope graphically in the indie space and forced other engines like Unity to reconsider how they handle their high-end market. But video game graphics is an ever-changing field, and what looks amazing one day will look rather dated pretty fast. You can watch a movie or read a book from 10 years ago and maybe notice a small detail or two that dates the work, but overall they'll still feel like modern works of art. On the other hand, play a game from 10 years ago and you'll immediately notice how dated it is. Old game design practices, technical limitations, and most obviously, the graphics. On the graphical side, anything that was trying to be realistic 10 years ago will look pretty bad by modern standards. But games that had a strong visual style not aimed at realism can still look pretty good, even with their age working against them. Think about games like Wind Waker, Journey, or Okami. They weren't trying to compete on realism and instead established a bold, memorable art style. In this way, I believe that a strong visual style is both more important and less susceptible to age than chasing whatever is realistic at the time. I'm sure many people would agree with that statement, but probably not the ones commenting, "Nintendo, hire this man," on Unreal Engine Mario Remake videos. Now, it's very hard to compare the data on this because games sell for a whole number of reasons, but I wouldn't be surprised if games with high-end graphics sold better at first, but dropped off faster over time. I mean, Mario Sunshine came out in 2002, and that game is still talked about to this day. Meanwhile, do you think people are out there hunting for copies of DICE's Battlefield 1942 from the same year? Yeah, of course I say that, and then one person will comment something like, "Well, actually, I have over 100 copies of Battlefield 1942. Okay, Battlefield George, if we exclude you, then the statistics drop back down to 0. Anyways, what I'm trying to say with all this is that while realistic graphics do matter, it's not as all-encompassing as these Unreal Engine fanboys would have you believe. Pick a unique art style, work on it over the years, refine your craft, and you've got a lot more going for you than whatever realistic graphics are doing in the present day. But since I'm talking about cutting-edge tech, I have to bring up the little gaming benchmark channel that transformed into a huge Unreal Remake channel. KryzenX started off on YouTube over 10 years ago making your standard high-end gaming benchmark videos. Like many other channels at the time, a lot of these videos were focused on Crysis 3, which was touted as the peak of video game graphics in its day. I know I'm making a huge assumption here, but I'm gonna hazard a guess that KryzenX got his name from Crysis. After a few years of high-end benchmarks, ultra mods, and other gaming tech showcases, Unreal Engine 4 was released to the public. And like many others, KryzenX took this opportunity to start doing remakes featuring popular game characters in Unreal Engine. One of his most notorious series is focused on the Unreal Engine Kite demo scene. This was a scene that Unreal devs made for a short animation showcase. Their video features a Pixar-esque character chasing a kite through a sprawling mountain landscape to show off what Unreal 4 was capable of. They also released this scene to the public so anyone could download it to study how it was constructed for their own projects. The scene itself was impressive at the time, but just like a lot of other Unreal demo scenes, it was made mostly as a marketing piece. While we saw some other YouTubers making Unreal Engine videos with a variety of demo scenes, KryzenX was fixated on this one kite demo. And as expected, he started making videos with all kinds of popular characters dropped into this scene. Not only limiting himself to Mario, we also saw Sonic, Kirby, and a few Pokemon in this mountain landscape, all plastered with an atrocious CPU monitor taking up a quarter of the screen. Despite these videos all being basically the same, they were regularly bringing in tens or even hundreds of thousands of views apiece. When I was sorting through these, watching kite demo after kite demo, the entire concept started to become absurd to me. Kind of like when you say a word over and over and it becomes nonsense in your brain. All I could see was Crash Bandicoot kite demo, Donkey Kong kite demo, Star Fox kite demo, kite demo, kite demo, kite demo, kite demo. Point is, if you've ever seen an Unreal Engine video of some character standing in a windswept field, it was probably made by KryzenX. But eventually the public interest in kite demos dried up, so he moved on to some other projects. Namely, something a lot closer to what you might call a remake. One of my favorites of this group is the Road to Bowser remake, which kind of looks like the same models as the original level, with some poorly upscaled textures on top. Not to mention the absolute mess that is the lighting, with darkness darkness obscuring half the stage and random blobs of light baked onto objects with no apparent source. But the real piece de resistance is the terrible rain particle system that somehow manages to look neither realistic or cartoony. After dabbling in various other Unreal remakes, it seems like he settled on attempting to recreate all of Ocarina of Time in Unreal Engine, and that's what he's still working on 10 years later. Will it ever be finished? Will Nintendo sick their lawyers on it? Who knows? Now, I personally have no interest in a sorta pretty by 10-year-old standards remake of Ocarina of Time, but maybe that's just me. I'm sure that over 900 paid members on Patreon would beg to disagree, and they have moved up to Unreal Engine 5 after starting with 4. So I guess that's cool. With all this talk about Unreal Engine this, Unreal Engine that, is it really all it's cracked up to be? Did the thousands of eager viewers 10 years ago chanting, "Nintendo, hire this man," really prove that Unreal was on the top? Or do the thousands of people ironically posting "Nintendo, hire this man" in the comments of these videos today prove that it's lost its luster? There's a little bit of truth in both those statements, but I wouldn't take either of them at face value. Looking at Google Trends, we can see that the interest in Unreal Engine was minimal until the public release, which is all well and good. And while that spike might seem significant, when we compare it to other popular engines for indie developers, it's barely a blip compared to the overall interest in Unity. The popularity gap has narrowed over time, but simultaneously we're seeing Godot gain interest almost equivalent to that of Unreal. Looking back, Unity, despite being used in some blockbuster titles like Subnautica, Hollow Knight, and Hearthstone, has always had somewhat mixed opinions among the gaming public. The basic Unity project is very bare bones, not offering too much in the way of hand-holding, especially when it comes to making things look good. So despite Unity being completely capable of beautiful games, it's not really achievable for amateur devs, which obviously make up a bulk of the game dev sphere. Pair this with the fact that Unity used to force their splash screen on for unpaid users, which meant that you really only saw the Unity logo on beginner projects. With those two factors working against it, Unity got a bad rap as the engine for ugly games, or the engine for shovelware, when in reality it was just that lots of first-time devs were posting their crappy Unity projects, and that became the brand image for a while. After some major games being released in Unity, things started to turn around, and now the public opinion is a little more neutral overall. Unreal is kind of going through a similar scenario right now. While it is easy to make good-looking games with minimal experience in Unreal, it isn't always for the best. A lot of graphically demanding features put a strain on the system, and without proper optimization, your game can become a stuttery mess. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of people call it Stutter Engine 5 due to the number of indie games that look good at face value, but run really poorly when you pick them up. But in the end, it's kind of unfair to judge engines entirely on what amateur devs are putting out. It's kind of like saying that all paintings in the world are ugly, when we know that it's really just that the majority of amateur painters aren't good, but a couple experts make some amazing paintings. So look to the accomplished devs pushing the boundaries of their engine, not the amateurs who are just trying to figure out how it works. Anyways, I could talk about engines forever, but in the end, they're really just tools. Unity's great at things like multi-platform, and it has the biggest community of any engine by far, while Unreal is great at making high-fidelity graphics without too much effort. But you can still make a beautiful game in Unity or a 2D game in Unreal if you really know what you're doing. But that's enough engine talk. Let's just ignore what I just said and go back to judging Unreal by its ugliest projects. If you ask people where they think this genre of videos started, most would probably point to Mario's Unreal or the infamous Kite demo series. And while those were both hugely successful, they weren't exactly the founders of this niche. If we go back 2 years earlier to 2013, we can watch another classic Unreal video with nearly 1 million views. This one is simply called Minecraft in Unreal Engine 3 by Neo the Ghost, and it delivers on exactly that. It's pretty much your standard early 2010s FPS with a Minecraft skin on top, which makes a lot of sense because that's what Unreal Engine was originally made to do. But in contrast to all the other videos we've seen so far, this does actually look like Minecraft, or at least a modded version of Minecraft with a couple fancy shaders. I guess Neo the Ghost was just ahead of his time. However, I did manage to find one major video that's even older than that. From 2011, we have a video titled Mario Recreated in Unreal Engine 3, from a channel called 1UP. Despite being even older than the other Mario remakes, this one stays pretty true to the original NES game, albeit in a 3D space. The assets may be crude, but they all look vaguely like the game they're trying to copy, and not weirdly semi-realistic. Although, the animations are pretty terrible in comparison. I don't know why first-person Mario needs weird grabby hands, but I'm kinda worried about what he's gonna do with them. There are older videos that sort of reference Mario in Unreal, but I think you get the point. By this point, we've talked about a bunch of bad Unreal Engine remake videos, the value of art styles, meme history, game engines, and a whole lot more. But I do have one more creator I really want to talk about, and this is where things go off the deep end.
I'm gonna fight all the bad guys and be a hero.
Teaser Play is probably the most prolific of all the Unreal Engine remake YouTubers, sitting at 400,000 subscribers with 150 million views across 127 videos. They go far beyond simply dropping popular characters into tech demo scenes, instead opting to make fake game trailers and short animations. Now, some of the videos are made to be comedic, but even the ones that are supposed to be serious I find kind of unintentionally hilarious.
Big smoke! Damn.
Most of their videos are titled X in Unreal Engine or X with RTX on, just like the videos from 10 years ago. They really haven't changed the formula. They've adapted movies like Joker and Shrek, TV shows like Breaking Bad, existing games like Subway Surfers, and multimedia characters like The Flash. Of course, they stick to the signature Unreal method of slapping on as many post-processing effects as possible to make things look cinematic. And the videos are always wildly varying in quality, from modern high-end assets to incredibly wonky animations. But speaking of assets, it appears that almost everything in these videos consists of pre-made assets. Visuals aside, even on a conceptual level, a lot of these are very questionable projects. Like, what would you do in an open-world Joker game? Play pranks on people and run away from the police? What about a Breaking Bad game? They don't offer up much besides cutscenes and driving around. I guess they could be adapted like Telltale games, but that's not what the videos are showing. And then we have Subway Surfers, which is already a highly stylized game appealing mainly to children, while this video shows the opposite. Even if this HD remake looked and played better, it wouldn't be as successful in their target demo based on visuals alone. Meanwhile, them touting their Flash game as Earth-sized is basically impossible. Sure, Microsoft Flight Sim has some amazing tech to simulate the globe from the sky, but it's not detailed enough for a street-level view. And on the gameplay side, how would you even control such ridiculous speeds? What would you do while zipping around the planet? Is this just a superhero-themed Google Earth? How would you not bump into things every fraction of a second? Concept aside, I have to say the animations are hilarious. His goofy posture and stilted movements look suspiciously like they reused animation data from the Hulk. But credit where it's due, a good Shrek open world game would actually go pretty hard. There's already been a couple semi-successful Shrek games, so it isn't completely unreasonable. But this video doesn't really sell me on a Shrek Skyrim ripoff, a sort of Shrek-rim, if you will. Or maybe Shrek-Wind? Oblivionion? The video doesn't have any sense of humor that a Shrek game would require, and the models they use don't fit at all with the semi-realistic graphics. But we do get a shot of Shrek falling into a hay bale from high up, so maybe this is more of a Shrek's Creed type of game. Interestingly, this video has comments disabled, which isn't the case for the majority of their videos. I, for one, would love to see more goofy Elder Scrolls Shrek videos, whether they're made of entirely pre-made assets or not. But since I've been talking about assets so much in the video, I suppose I need to talk about the whole asset debate. I think that every video I've covered so far uses assets to some degree, if not for the entire video like the teaser play ones. I didn't really want to spend the time tracking down every last character and prop used in these videos, but I was able to find a couple pretty quickly. To start off, we can look at Fab, the Unreal Engine asset marketplace. On there we can find popular asset packs like Medieval Town, which is used in the Shrek video. There's also a city sample, city props, downtown alley, and a handful of other city packs they use in videos like the Joker one. As for the characters, you can find all manner of classic characters ripped from old games over on Models Resource. I'd imagine most of the videos we've covered so far either got their characters from Models Resource or artist-run sites like Sketchfab. And wouldn't you know it, Sketchfab not only has the Shrek model they used, but also the Mixamo animations featured in the video. If you didn't already know, Mixamo is a site where you can purchase pre-made animations for your characters, just like you'd purchase models on another asset site. But the thing is, assets aren't inherently bad by themselves. It really comes down to how you use them in a game or video. Meanwhile, there are some people who absolutely lose their minds when you say the word asset, which is kind of a ridiculous position to have. Like, is it bad if a studio makes a background chair for one of their games and then reuses that chair in the sequel somewhere? Why waste time remaking assets from scratch if you can already get your hands on one that perfectly matches your game's style? Time is one of the most important resources in game dev, so asset creation always needs to be weighed against spending time in other areas. AAA games especially are super art intensive, often needing magnitudes more time in the art department than other areas to make the same feature. So the use of assets isn't inherently bad, but the way that you see beginners use them often is. You regularly see new indie games coming out on Steam that are largely comprised of asset packs, making the game feel generic and soulless. Even worse when the game uses multiple assets from different sources with clashing art styles that immediately gives away their inexperience. It's best when assets are used sparingly and only in ways that blend in seamlessly with the rest of the project. But what most people don't realize is that by definition, the majority of all video game sound effects are assets. Indie games very rarely record original audio, and even AAA studios don't do it 100% of the time. Most of what you hear in games aside from the music is largely pre-existing audio that might have been tweaked a little bit. At the same time, most games that have plants, trees, and other complex vegetation are using assets, not making their own. Even the plants in my last game are from Speed Tree. Well, except for the blood trees, I did model those myself. But what about entire project assets that are used as a starting point? Well, this brings me to Horror Engine, a no-code horror game builder made for Unreal Engine. The original was released in 2018, and the SE version is still being updated to this day. If you've ever played some indie horror games made in Unreal, there's a very high chance you've experienced Horror Engine. It's truly a massive asset, covering just about every feature that your standard indie horror game would have. Those features include okay, deep breath first, here we go. Event triggers, inventory, item inspection, quest diary, subtitles, shaders and effects, health and damage, ladders, footsteps, flashlights, a night vision camera effect, a shootable pistol, VHS tapes, a working TV and radio, a security system, portals, modular candles, flickering lights, a door system, various buttons, and some other random props. It's probably been used in hundreds of games at this point, which makes it easily spottable if you know what to look for. It's good for amateurs who are learning the basics, or more experienced devs who want to use it as a base for bigger projects, but it's really not so great when 99% of your game is Horror Engine with a few assets thrown on top. You might be asking, hey Effie, why are you talking so much about Horror Engine? Isn't this an Unreal Engine remake video? Well, in my research for this video, I noticed that Teaser Play had just one single video that stood out from the rest of their catalog. This one didn't feature any pre-existing IP, no RTX on, and not a single joke to be found. Instead, it was a trailer for a horror game titled Graveyard Shift, which is really strange considering none of their 126 other videos have been about horror games. Going to the Steam page, we can see that Graveyard Shift looks like your standard walk around and get jump scared type of horror game. I don't know if these have an official term, but I like to call them haunted house games because the experience is basically the same as a haunted house attraction in real life. The trailer shows some fancy Unreal Engine graphics in a graveyard setting, which looks a lot like this cemetery asset pack I found. There's also a security monitor system, very reminiscent of Five Nights at Freddy's, and some spooky monsters walking around. The game costs about $7 and has over 500 reviews. So if we give it a rough estimate of 1 in 20 people reviewing the game, that means this game has made about $70,000 so far. Of course, that doesn't factor in things like percentage cuts or sales, but I wouldn't be surprised if this game still cleared about $50,000, say. I'd say that's a pretty good return on investment for a handful of assets. But what do the reviews have to say? Well, the positive reviews say they enjoyed it for a few dollars, but there isn't too much substance to it. And the negative reviews point out how buggy it is, while saying it feels overly linear and far too short. And, probably unsurprisingly, both positive and negative reviews are quick to point out that it's obviously made with Horror Engine. Teaser Play is listed under the Graveyard Shift Publisher section, so it makes sense that they have the trailer on their YouTube channel. But Dark Phobia has 3 other games on Steam, 2 released and 1 upcoming, and teaser play isn't listed on any of them. The trailers don't appear on teaser play's YouTube either, instead being featured on Dark Phobia's own channel. Homeless looks like a classic avoid the stalker type horror game, which is somewhat refreshing after the minimal mechanics of the previous entry. It has a central villain, presumably a homeless guy who's also a demon and possibly a clown too, and he wants to eat you. I mean, he even holds up a nice sign saying so. So I guess this is their sort of unlicensed take on Stephen King's It. The positive reviews say it's visually impressive, but full of horror cliches that bring down the mood, while the negative reviews say it's less buggy than the last game, but still boring and repetitive. And yes, this is another Horror Engine title, no real surprise there. Meanwhile, their last game, Amenti, is an ancient Egyptian horror game. I'll give them some props there. Even though this isn't the only game to feature Egyptian horror, it is a solid concept that hasn't really been explored much lately. One positive reviewer says there are only 2 Egyptian horror games on Steam, so one of them has to be good. While the negative reviews do praise the atmosphere, they once again say it feels like a generic Horror Engine title filled with bugs, inconsistent assets, and poor optimization. Their upcoming title, The Lightkeeper, features more of a cinematic trailer, mostly operating on vibes with minimal gameplay shown. It looks clearly influenced by Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse, although it seems like they're going for pure horror instead of the dark comedic tone of that movie. One thing I noticed looking through all these games is that the thumbnails didn't really seem to match any of the in-game assets too well. The Steam thumbnails were hard to get a good look at, so I dug up this promo image for Graveyard Shift instead. I had a sense that these were AI generated, but looking at this in full size pretty much confirms it. I mean, an artist could make a tree that cuts off at a 90-degree angle, or a long bendy pointer finger for some reason, and a stubby pinky finger to go with it. They could also make wavy gravestones with inconsistent widths, but why would they? The guy in the thumbnail for Homeless looks vaguely like the one in the game, but it's clearly not the same model. So someone either made a completely new render from scratch, or it's AI generated. Given that I've published games on Steam myself, I know for a fact that they ask you if anything in your game is AI generated when you submit it. Now, I don't personally know how they answered these questions, but it does make me give these projects a little bit of a side eye. Teaser Play was a channel originally made by some animators looking to show off their work in Unreal Engine. They didn't seem to be too experienced on the gameplay side, so it made sense that they dipped their toes into horror first. Despite being a horror game dev myself, I have to concede that a lot of indie horror games emphasize mood and atmosphere over strong gameplay. This makes it a very popular genre for both artists and beginner game developers who want to make a game with minimal code. We've already seen lots of successful horror games that are not so great on the game design side, and the bar is even lower if you start from an all-in-one project builder like Horror Engine. But in my opinion, truly great horror games are also strong on the design side. Think about Resident Evil, or Alien Isolation, or more action-oriented horror like The Evil Within or Prey. They're still scary at times, but they're pretty fun to play and even replay. Meanwhile, your generic indie horror game might have some scares that are okay at first glance, but they often devolve into simple gameplay clones of Five Nights at Freddy's or Slender or the eternal PT clone that every single indie game dev was trying to make. But maybe I'm just picky because I love the genre and I've played so many indie horror games over the years. And as I said, I also make horror games myself, like my mind-bending stealth horror game Heliophobia, or my survival horror immersive sim Ad Infernum. But I still love playing horror games of all different kinds, so I wouldn't want to discourage any devs from getting into the genre. Your first few games probably won't be great, but stick with it and you might just be the next big thing. But that's enough of my rant. What was this video about again? Unreal Engine remakes? Well, I have to give some credit to CryzenX for innovating the bare minimum genre with the Kite demo series, but my absolute favorite videos have to be by Teaser Play. I mean, Dragonborn Shrek and Google Earth Flash are classics, and we can't forget about their A+ depiction of Hank from Breaking Bad. It's still so crazy to me that despite this genre peaking 10 years ago, Teaser Play is still chugging along making absolute bangers of unintentional comedy.
Big smoke! Oh, damn.
I see a lot of people getting mad and trashing these videos whenever one gets posted to Twitter, but I always have a laugh at the absurdity of it all. So for the last time, this is all just harmless fun. Please don't comment on any of these old videos, even if you're just joking. We really wouldn't want to discourage anyone from making more ridiculous content for us to watch in the future. So good luck to Kryzen X on the Ocarina of Time remake, and good luck to Teaser Play on the new videos and games. Speaking of which, I'd love to hear from anyone who's actually played their games before. Are you a Horror Engine fan or hater? Are they scary, buggy? Give me the details. And in the end, game engines are just tools, so don't get caught up in the bandwagon of hating a game just because it's in an engine you don't like. I mean, hey, as much as we trashed Unreal Engine in this video, not all Unreal Engine remakes are bad. I mean, the Silent Hill 2 remake was actually pretty good. This whole thing has been such a wild trip for me. From what originally started as a short video idea to the massive video that it turned out to be, I'm happy to finally be done with it. And if you're still here, I have to say thank you for sticking around until the end. This video isn't sponsored or anything, but if you want to support me, feel free to subscribe to the channel or check out some of my games on Steam. I also have a Discord server if you want to come hang out and chat with us sometime. Links to all that down below. But before I leave, I have to ask, what was your favorite video? Is Teaser Play still the reigning champ of Unreal Engine remakes? Should Konami hire them to remake Silent Hill 3?
Big smoke. Oh.
Anyways, I'm gonna go back to working on my next game in Unity now. Peace.